Okay. We'll call this meeting of Murraysville Council to order. First order of business tonight is we have some Eagle Scouts here. Let's give them a hand. So we'll congratulate them, and we'll hand it over to the mayor to make some comments.
Thanks, Mr. Dice. I'd have a couple comments first. In general about the Eagle Scouts, since 1912, when the Eagle Scout Award was introduced, more than 2 million young men have earned Eagle Scout. 21 badges must be earned, including 12 required badges. A leadership service project must be completed along with boards of review at the troop, district, and council levels. And this is something I didn't know. Eagle Scout must be earned before turning age 18. So without further ado, I'll call each one of the young men up, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Jill Cooper, our new state legislator, to join me. First is Kyle Collimer. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next is Alex Kuzmakowski. Get it close? Congratulations. Darius Colangelo. Congratulations. Job well done. Ben Poole. I think Mrs. Cooper has a presentation to do here.
Well, we're just thrilled and excited to have more of the same troop, right? And, thanks, Mayor. Good evening. What an honor it is to be here to present these young men with citations and awards for such an accomplishment. If your leaders would come up. And again, what I would like to do is have each one of you tell us what your project was, as Reach had mentioned, to earn the badge of or to earn the honor to be called the Eagle Scout, you had to do a specific project. And if you could tell us what it was, I'll just pass the microphone down.
So in the Murraysville Community Park Scout Knob campsite, I helped construct the second campsite along with the road and the tent pads.
So at Murraysville Community Park, outside Leftwich Pavilion, I built the Gaga Ball pit.
At McGinnis Nature Reserve, it's across from Sardis Fire Hall. We constructed a chimney swift tower to provide a habitat for the chimney swifts as well as an informational kiosk.
And at the Mother of Sorrows School, I renovated their outdoor classroom.
Good evening. I'm Ben Collimer, one of the Scoutmasters of Troop 205 Murraysville. We're located at the Newlandsburg Presbyterian Church, and all these boys are quite the mentors in our unit.
Thank you.
Excellent.
I'm Marty Kushmkowski. I'm an assistant scoutmaster with the troop, and obviously we're very proud of all of these young men's accomplishments. Thank you, boys.
What I'd like to do is just read one of the citations. Each one is individualized for each scout in their specific project, but I thought I would just read it to you. This is from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the House of Representatives. It's a citation. Whereas the House of Representatives of Pennsylvania takes great pride in recognizing these young men who've displayed steadfast commitment to the ideals and time-honored traditions of the Boy Scouts of America by attaining the rank of Eagle Scout, an accomplishment of the highest magnitude. And whereas the rank of Eagle Scout is the highest advanced rank that can be reached by a Boy Scout, in achieving this praiseworthy distinction, all have completed portions of the Eagle Scout program, which helped a scout to develop in the area of leadership, service, and outdoor skills. To fulfill the community service requirement, each performed a project which they told you about. Whereas through initiative and by their personal example, they all are a living testament to the virtues of duty and citizenship that has so genuinely and readily been displayed. They are, I'm sure their parents are proud of them, And now, therefore, the House of Representatives of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania applaud them upon earning the rank of Eagle Scout, affirming states that he truly exemplifies the admirable spirit and essence of the Boy Scouts of America, extends best wishes for continued leadership and service to others, and directs that a copy of this citation, sponsored by myself on February 9th, 2023, be transmitted to them here at the council meeting. So thank you all for what you've done. We're very proud of you here in the community. One more round of applause for all of them.
Congratulations from myself and from the whole council. We're very proud and honored to have you here tonight. Thank you. You be introduced, Joe.
Sorry, we have a special guest with us tonight. Our Murraysville, with the redistricting, has a new state senator. We were serviced before by Senator Joe Pittman, and now with redistricting, Senator Kim Ward is our new state senator. She's also the president of the Senate, and we're very proud to have her represent Murraysville, and she's here to say a few words. Senator Ward.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Should I sing? No. What do you mean, no? Is anybody else running for mayor? So, good evening. It is very, very nice to be here, and I am very pleased that Murraysville is now in the district that I serve. I've been in the Senate for 14 years. I know, career politician. But I've never, ever had the honor of representing Murraysville. So, Representative Cooper just said a little bit about Senator Pittman, but I'm telling you, he wanted Ligonier. He wanted Ligonier and Murraysville. So Ligonier's closer, so I said, you can have that, but I get Murraysville. So I look forward to working with all of you and doing what I'm able to do to assist your very able council and mayor with moving this community forward. So thank you for letting me speak a couple of minutes here. Thank you. Thank you, Reach.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Dice.
Right. Thank you, Mayor, and obviously congratulations to those Boy Scouts. That's wonderful, and thank you very much to Representative Cooper and Senator Ward for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. With that being said, we're going to get back to our regular agenda, and the first thing we're going to do tonight is have a public hearing. So we're going to open the public hearing now. That is a public hearing on Z2-22, Redstone Presbyterian Senior Care to rezone approximately 36.3 acres located at Klein Hollow Road, tax parcel 4915050013 from R2 to R3. So with that being said, Michael, do you want to get us started, or do we want to start with the applicant?
I believe we could start with the applicant.
Okay, wonderful. The representatives from Redstone want to come forward. And I just note we are making a record tonight, so before you speak, please make sure you identify yourself. And for everyone at home, please just speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Well, good evening. My name's John Dixon. I'm president and CEO of Redstone. Do you want addresses too?
I don't think that's necessary.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, what a wonderful ceremony with the Boy Scouts this evening and being Eagle Scouts and all the good things that happen in this community. It goes back to 1998. There was tremendous human good that emerged from leaders in Murraysville recognizing that they needed to develop independent housing and personal care units for a growing senior population. That human good produced Redstone Highlands Community, which opened in 2001, consisting of 90 apartments and 44 personal care units. For 21 years now, we have been serving this community and are recognized as a high-quality and responsible provider. As a not-for-profit, Redstone provides an average of $1 million of benevolent and charity care annually. Benevolent care is when an individual family outlives their financial resources. Redstone does not evict subject to this situation. As a trusted provider, we serve many families in this community. Tonight, we have 3 residents of the Murraysville campus, Alice Cathy, Carolyn Rogers, and Bill Primozic, who will later present their personal journey to come to Redstone, along with why such benefits of senior housing are needed in this community. In 2007, Redstone provided another future investment for the Murraysville community when we purchased a 36-acre parcel for $1,150,000, knowing there would be a future expansion need for Redstone services. A Tribune Review article dated July 3, 2020, entitled "Murraysville Officials Look at Updating Zoning to Promote Growth." This article calls for the need of expanding retirement housing opportunities. That is what brings us here tonight, to help fulfill that need. It is noted this development expansion will be fully taxable. We estimate that Phase 1 alone, based upon the cost estimate of $14 million, will generate $215,450 in annual tax revenue. Presently, the tax revenue generated on the undeveloped 38 acres provides $2,539.18. Tonight, also representing Redstone is Jonathan Gurcheski, who is from Gateway Engineers, Dan Hudak, our corporate counsel. Both will speak to certain document aspects of the packets that were mailed to everybody in the council and with families at Mystic Hills Plan in advance of this meeting. Also in the audience this evening representing Redstone are Mike Passalingua, a board chair, Keith Langston, the Murraysville resident who is a director and board member, and Reverend Charles McPherson, a director. At this time, I'd like to present the design features of the project to council members. Jonathan?
Yep. Good evening. My name is Jonathan Garcheski with Gateway Engineers, project manager, civil engineer, representing Redstone Highlands. As discussed, Redstone is looking to rezone the 36-acre parcel of property they own that is adjacent to their existing senior living facility. This drawing right here, perfect. You can see this is an aerial photo from the Westmoreland County tax map, and this map is showing the existing property located right here, and the property proposed for rezoning is the parcel located here, heavily wooded and cover. Thank you. Right here and outlined in blue. Klein Hollow Road is to the north of the page, as well as the adjacent residential properties to the south, consisting of Arrowhead Court, Sequoia Court, and Apache Lane. This drawing represents a copy of the municipality of Murraysville's zoning map. The existing parcel of Redstone is located right here in purple, designated as R3, and then the adjacent parcel cross-hatched right here and outlined in black is the existing 36-acre parcel proposing to be rezoned from R2, the blue designation, to R3, the adjacent R3 zoning district. We have conducted several iterations and designs for the development of this property, working both with staff as well as the Planning Commission, starting with an individual single-family dwelling unit package. However, after evaluation of the construction costs associated with such a development, as well as the overall potential impact to the entire property, the design team decided to shift gears to a multi-unit structure to accommodate the number of units to make the project financially viable, but also to create a plan that would provide the least amount of impact to the overall property. With this in mind, as a part of the request for the rezoning of the property from R2 to R3, we would propose to build a four-structure, 26-unit garden apartment building and a clubhouse within an overall phased approach. Again, just to reorient, Klein Hollow Road is located to the north of the property. The existing Redstone Highlands campus is located right here. as well as the existing residential community to the south. As you can see, access to the proposed facility would be located entirely from within the existing Redstone campus, exiting onto Klein Hollow Road. You would then traverse up into the site to the location of the proposed clubhouse, parking structure filled, as well as then making your way up into 4 buildings located throughout the property. As you can see on this plan, you probably can't see it that well, but these various markers located on the plan depict distances from the property, from the proposed buildings to the property limits. Here's a proposed architectural rendering of the proposed buildings. Due to the steep terrain on the property, we're proposing 2 views as a result of this. It would be a 3-story building. However, a portion of the building would be buried on the downhill side. So this is a view from the downhill side. The bottom portion of this structure would be for garages and parking of vehicles, and then the top 2 floors would be the residential units. So this would be the downhill view, basically, if you were looking up from Klein Hollow Road, and then this would be the uphill view in the opposite direction. So with that, I just wanted, with the proposed plan and this request for rezoning, I would like to further review the area and bulk regulations from the municipality's zoning ordinance, as outlined for each of the individual zoning districts. Each of these items designate the bulk and area regulations from the municipal ordinances, and I have it broken up into the R2 zoning of the current zoning characteristics of the property, the R3 zoning for single-family use, R3 zoning for the garden apartments, and then our proposed plan. The minimum lot area within the R2 zoning district is 20,000 square feet, and the minimum lot area within the R3 zoning district for single families is 10,900 square feet. I just present this information as the basis for going from the R2 to the R3 zoning. The minimum lot width within the R2 and the R3 is 90 feet comparably to 75 feet. Minimum lot frontage is 54 to 45. Required front yard goes from 40 feet to 30 feet. Required side yards go from 15 to 10. And required rear yards go from 30 feet to 30 feet. The maximum density, as you can see though, there is a jump from the R2 to the R3 zoning of 47 units to 214 units. As you can see within the R3 zoning, bulk regulations as far as setbacks and minimum lot frontages, as well as required front yards, do decrease. However, within our proposal, we're proposing the garden apartment use. And in the garden apartment use within the R3 zoning district, although the minimum lot area is reduced, all of the other bulk regulations are increased from the current R2 zoning regulations. Furthermore, as part of our proposed plan, we are proposing distances that well exceed the minimum lot requirements for lot width, lot frontage, required front yards, side yards, rear yards. And then in lieu of proposing 214 maximum units, our proposal is just the 4 buildings, 26 units in each, totaling 104 units in a clubhouse. 104? No problem. No problem, thank you. So further, just to go back over our proposed plan, as mentioned within the bulk regulations, the minimum requirements. Just to highlight a few setbacks located on here. The phased approach would be the first phase would be the first clubhouse building, parking spaces, and first building right here closest to Klein Hollow Road. Future phases would include phase 2 of this building and parking area, phase 3, this building and parking area, and then ultimately phase 4 would be this building and associated parking. In each of these scenarios, the distance from proposed buildings to the adjacent properties is well under 100 feet, with the closest one being located right here to the portion of the single-family residential development to the south. All others exceed greater than 100 feet of development. So as you can see, Redstone Senior Care and the design team have gone through an iterative approach in determining the best path to expand their services by developing the adjacent piece of property. However, in order to develop the property to meet the needs of Redstone, we would like council to consider our request for rezoning the property from R2 to R3. With that, I'll turn it over to Council Dan Hudock.
Good evening. My name is Dan Hudock. I'm the corporate counsel for Redstone. I was here before the Planning Commission along with Mr. Dixon and our engineer, and there were a host of citizens here from Mystic Hills. And I think their concerns are what led the Planning Commission, as you know, to not recommend the zoning change. Why, I can tell you we heard them loud and clear. We've communicated with the citizens, and we came up with a legal resolution to this issue, and I wanted to highlight that for you. It was included in the packet of materials that were sent to you, and they are restrictive covenants that Redstone has placed on the property. And what those are is, some of you may live in neighborhood plans where you have restrictive covenants for certain uses. You can't have more than so many unrelated people living in a house. You can't have above-ground pools. You can't have detached garages and so forth. Those are restrictions on property that usually run with the land. Whoever buys that piece of property, they are stuck with those restrictions. Well, after the Planning Commission and getting the feedback from the citizens and listening to their concerns, which were primarily that, hey, our neighborhood, Mystic Hills, which has been here since 1960 or maybe more, that it's suddenly going to become this throughway or racetrack for everyone coming from these buildings, the residents, the employees, and so forth. And we said that that is not going to happen. Well, the question at the meeting was, at the Planning Commission, was, well, how do we know that? Can we trust you? And of course we said, yes, trust us. But what we did is we created these restrictive covenants. They were executed by Redstone, and they are recorded at the courthouse. And what they say is that no ingress or egress from that undeveloped property can occur to the south onto either of those public roads or any public road. So basically everything for Redstone's use or anyone that may ever use this property will have to go onto Klein Hollow Road. Like I said, that is recorded, and also it cannot be removed unless Redstone and the municipality of Murraysville consent to that removal. So we did this out of a sense of good faith. It is now on the property. We are stuck with that restriction for the life of the property unless Murraysville allows us to take it off that. But just wanted to point that out to you, let you know that we have, we believe, addressed the main objection from the citizens and from the Planning Commission last time.
So I guess our question is, do you have any questions with the packets that were sent out to you in advance of the meeting, of the materials that were presented?
Council?
I have a question. So you said that the residents' main objection was worried about being a throughway, essentially. What were their other objections?
Well, I don't recall any other objections, possibly setbacks, site clearing of the property. What we've demonstrated tonight with where the site plan is, the development plan, it's minimal disturbance of trees up there to have proper buffing. Now, quite frankly, we would want to buff it as well from the existing community, and I'm sure they would too.
The other question, you're not for profit, so your other development that's in existence right now, do you pay real estate taxes on that development?
So we applied for what is called a pilot agreement, or we applied for tax exemption. I'm trying to remember what year that was. That came about because of a case that was tried in Pennsylvania and that was approved by the courts. We fit the same purpose as the facility or organization as well. So we went for tax exemption. We have a pilot agreement now. Yeah, go ahead.
We're an institution of purely public charity, so just like a church, for example, so we are entitled to tax exemption. And in order to be tax exempt, you have to apply for it. So when that PA Supreme Court case came down, interpreting it in respect to CCRCs, continuing care retirement communities by nonprofit, often faith-based institutions, we applied for that exemption. Once the court case, and we did this in other municipalities too, once the court case got to a certain point, we resolved it through settlement, and that settlement included a pilot agreement, payment in lieu of taxes, and we do pay sums to Murraysville in recognition of the fact that we use municipal services. So that is the existing facility. Even though we believe constitutionally we don't have to pay taxes as a church doesn't, as other purely public charities, we voluntarily do so. We are saying tonight on the new development that we're not going to apply for exemption. We're going to pay full freight.
And in the future, is there a possibility of you applying for that exemption?
We're confirming this evening that we're not going to do that. We recognize the importance of taxes within the community. And quite frankly, what that tax exemption helped us do is offset the cost of benevolent care. I would challenge that there's not a nonprofit in the Murraysville community that totals the amount of benevolent or charity care that this organization provides.
And then I have one more question. You gave an estimate on the amount of taxes that you would pay for an R3 development. Do you have an estimate on what that would be for an R2 development?
No, we did not do that calculation. Again, the reason, as stated by Mr. Jurkowski, yeah, I'll get it right one of these days. When we did the overlay plan, the cost for development of doing a single-family site or villas that we've done in the past was too expensive. Before we even put a structure on a pad, the site development costs were $400,000 per unit. So that would put the cost of a unit anywhere between $650,000, $700,000. We didn't think that that would fly in this community economically. So then that's when we regrouped and looked at what we're calling brownstones that was displayed here this evening as that opportunity. And then that provides better setbacks, buffering, and it makes it more economical for us as an organization to develop.
I think that's all the questions.
If there were a rezoning permitted R2 to R3 and subsequent to that a developer made a tremendous offer to Redstone and Redstone said, okay, we'll take that. So therefore they decide to build something totally not like we were going to build. What protections does the community have that that could not happen?
And, you know, I truly understand what happened here, where that did happen. I think, and I'm hopeful that you have a trust in Redstone for what we do. We don't want to sell the property. We could have done that, you know, after we bought it in 2007. I can tell you the property appreciation of that property went almost up $1 million since we bought that property. We have no desire to do that, to sell it off to anybody whatsoever. We always bought it with the intent of doing more human good in this community and expand senior housing. That has been our mission, and we will continue to do that mission.
Can I address two things real quick? Ms. Ling asked about the taxes. Just I wanted to emphasize that $14 million that Mr. Dixon's talking about is just the clubhouse in one building. So to the extent we build it out in 3 more facilities, 3 more structures, that 200-some thousand in taxes is quadruple it, triple it. It's going to be significantly more, of course, mostly to the school district. As far as Mr. Stepanovich and the idea that, you know, some developer comes in, you know, you switch it to R3, and there's always a fear with zoning changes that you're opening Pandora's box. Suddenly, you've changed it, and now, 80 bar the door, anything can happen to that piece of property. Well, if you look at your zoning chart, the difference between an R2 and an R3 is pretty minimal. It's one residential to another. It's just a question of density. So it's a different type of housing. It's not going from residential to business or one type of business to an industrial use. Your worst case nightmare scenario that's never going to happen would only be a developer coming in to build another type of housing, townhouses, apartment buildings, something like that. And again, they too would be bound by those restrictive covenants that we've filed and executed. So they would be using Klein Hollow Road just like anybody else.
Has this been approved by the Medic One and the fire department that there be only one access through Klein Hollow?
So we haven't gone to that direction yet. Obviously, we wanted to get zoning. We do have another area where we can come on to Klein Hollow. That would be proposed as an emergency gate only in the event of an emergency for an emergency vehicle to come through. Wouldn't be a normal passway through onto Klein Hollow Road.
Okay. Further questions or concerns from council?
The buildings that are there, are they, they're strictly residential buildings? Is there staffing there, assisted living, or is that all in the lower
Yeah,
part?
the lower part is independent apartments and personal care units.
Right, but these are just residents, no, there's not Redstone staffing nurses and assisted
No,
living in these
because
buildings?
it's independent living.
It's all independent, okay.
Like most communities, as people age in place,
Right.
home and community-based services are available.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Do you have any indication of how many, what percentage of your current residents drive today?
I do not have that. I can provide that. What we typically find is because we provide transportation, most people aren't driving anyway. We're not driving, or the residents aren't driving during peak time, so they're not going to work or anything like that. I would say probably the peak times of anybody driving there is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
And so the new proposed development would have potentially 100 cars.
Well, realistically, no. That would not happen.
As far as the lunch and dinner and so forth, the residents of the new development is there going to be a meals package included there?
No, again, this is independent living.
Independent living.
But a lot of times what happened as people age in place, they'll buy ancillary services, like they might buy a meal plan, and then they would come down to the central building that exists now and participate in the dining room.
What is the expected cost per unit expected to be?
Well,
I mean, not exactly, just roughly.
What we're proposing is that within this complex of 26 units, there's going to be a variety of three bedroom units, 2 bedroom units, and a 1 bedroom unit. So it varies based upon costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a 3-bedroom unit, that sounds like family living. So
Yeah. No.
why would, what's the 3-bedroom living there?
Yeah, a lot of times what happens is individuals have challenges downsizing. And there is a need they want to have. A lot of times they'll use one of the 3 bedrooms as their den. And then the other bedroom is for visitors that come in, family members that would come in. Yeah, it's 55 and older.
It is 55 and older.
Did you say these buildings, there's parking, the garage parking, or no?
Yeah. So as displayed and discussed, the first floor is really parking. So an individual would come in, there would be a garage door. They come in and then they get out. They have an assigned parking space. They go to a central area and take an elevator up either to the 2nd or 3rd floor.
Okay.
Further questions, Jason?
I just, looking at some of the resident concerns, you've addressed somewhat the Sequoia side, but I'm a little concerned about the Klein Hollow side. That's a pretty tight bend, blind bend when you come up Klein Hollow. adding the additional cars, the additional traffic of these residents living alone, they're going to go to the Market District or wherever, the bank, probably more often than those that don't have cars. So that would be one concern, is the Klein Hollow side and the amount of impact that would have to that roadway.
Well, do you want to?
We did evaluate site distance for the potential emergency access along Klein Hollow Road in this location over here. Site distance is adequate there. In the event this does move forward, further engineering analysis would be made at the existing access on the Klein Hollow Road.
So you'd have to go with, provide a traffic impact study.
Any impact requirements or engineering analysis is required as part of the future development of the property would be provided at that time.
Okay, and there is lighting today at your facility, more lighting than a resident would have. What proposed lighting do you have for the new phases?
So again, the only items that would be lit would be the new parking areas, and those would all be designed in accordance with the municipal requirements, with proper shielding and lighting, foot candles and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further from council? Okay. Anything further from the applicant before we get to citizens' comments? All right.
Thank you for the plans you guys sent. They were very helpful to look at.
Would you like to hear from, we'd like to have a couple residents.
Yes.
Talk about the
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, please just come up and make sure to say your name for the court reporter. Thank you.
My name is Carolyn Rogers. I live in Redstone Independent Living in Murraysville. I was a resident on Arrowhead Court in Mystic Hills for approximately 40 years before that. And I think that, well, how I got here is through my mother needing someplace to live. She was had her own home in Illinois, and she was in her 90s, and we needed to get her closer to us. And ultimately, we found Redstone in Greensburg because Murraysville didn't have a facility at that time. We knew they were building, but she, in her 90s, we needed to get her out here more quickly. So she was able to come to independent living, and it just opened up her entire life. She had macular degeneration, and it was such a caring community, and she found a whole new community of people who had her same interests and also her same ailments, so that she didn't feel like she was being ostracized for any reason. She loved being able to walk around the facility and the outside of the building, and she loved being able to walk to the beauty shop and the gift shop, and especially the chapel, where she could once again go to church, because she couldn't do that back in Illinois because she couldn't cross streets. She had the macular degeneration. So that's how I first got acquainted with Redstone Highlands. And it was such a pleasant experience. In fact, she lived there for 6 years, and we had her 100th birthday in the chapel at Redstone in Greensburg. And it was a fine celebration, and that is how I came to love Redstone. And a decade later, my husband and I, still living on Arrowhead Court, we had thought, since we owned that home, that we would stay there forever. And of course, things change. And he was diagnosed with dementia, and we needed someplace to move to. And as many wonderful things that Murraysville offers in this community, there are many senior homes, but there aren't many senior living conditions. And we didn't want to be uprooted from our neighborhood. And by this time, the Murraysville Redstone was completed. It had a facility for memory care, and I could be in independent living. We were under the same roof. It was just a win-win situation. And I have to say that we moved into Redstone Murraysville in 2018, and I'm ever so thankful and grateful for that move. And although my husband is no longer living, I never feel alone. I never have any qualms about the safety. I feel safe and secure, and I'm proud to call Redstone Highlands my home. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Alice Cathy. I'm currently living in Redstone, a friend of Caroline's. She was one of the new people that I met. I did want to come and speak to you really about the experiences that I've had in my life that made me recognize the need for senior living communities. Started back in around 1990. I grew up in downtown Delmont. I'm a city girl. And my parents were living there in this 200-year-old log cabin that my family bought 200 years ago. It was originally a tannery. So as you can imagine, steps, crazy. But they were very happy there. And I could go out. I lived in Shadyside, and I would drive out every weekend and spend the day with them. And slowly but surely, I could see things falling apart. Things weren't working out quite the way I expected. And I attempted to have people come in and stay with them. And that lasted about a year. I had friends, nurses, different people who would come and stay. But again, slowly but surely, that wasn't working. And I was in a panic and feeling terribly guilty. I mean, moving these two old people out of the place that they loved was full of all this crazy stuff, Civil War flags and crazy things. But anyway, I went to Redstone and was able to get them into Redstone and Greensburg. And they lived very happily for the rest of their lives. They were safe. I didn't have to worry. When I came out, I could take them out places and we could enjoy ourselves. I didn't have to worry about cleaning the house or carrying coal. So anyway, the other part of that process was my husband and I, we had no children, and we discussed after I got Mother in there what was going to happen to us. We have no children. I really have no family living in Western Pennsylvania. The only reason I recognized, or anybody recognized, that Mother and Daddy needed to go somewhere was because I was there every Saturday, and I could see that the bills didn't seem to be being paid, whatever. She was letting people into the house. It was just a scary proposition. And Charles and I discussed it and basically said, what we need to do is we need to find a senior living facility like Redstone and Greensburg. And the thing that I learned most is we need to go before we recognize we need to go, because it's too late. It's not too late if you have family that'll recognize it, but if it's just the two of us, who knows what would happen to us. So we'd made up our mind that was what was going to happen. And we went on with our lives. In 2020, COVID hit. I started working from home. My husband had already retired. My husband slowly but progressively started to exhibit paranoid behaviors. And it was very scary, and I could not get our doctors to help. We would call the doctor, they would send him to a specialist. He was convinced he'd read the medical reports. He was convinced he was dying. They'd send us to another specialist. I pleaded with our GP, and I said, you've got to get him into the hospital to figure out what's wrong with him. And he said, oh, I can't put him in the hospital, go to the emergency room. Well, we were in the emergency room 10 times in 2 months, and the emergency room would run the test and send him home and say, nothing's wrong with you. But anyway, so I took charge, got us into Redstone. We were able to move in August of 2020, so it was only a 6-month period that I was going through. The medical staff, because I expressed my concerns, the medical staff started coming in to see him, and they recognized that his problems was paranoid, it was psychological, and almost immediately got him into a psychiatric unit up in Indiana, which I guess is a gerontology one geared toward that. Luckily we did it because we found out that there was really nothing medically wrong with him. There was nothing wrong with his brain. It was just this paranoia. So we came back to Redstone. I was living in Redstone. He was put in Terrace, and ultimately he did die. But this story, the realities are there is an unbelievable need for senior living and independent living. I think people don't recognize what a wonderful place it is. I'm so happy here. I have no desire to leave. I have a wonderful apartment with a beautiful view. And I grew up in Delmont. I went to Franklin, and I know the area. I still have the log cabin in Delmont, so I can go out and stare at the pond or come up with some crazy idea, something to do. But I am very, very happy here. And I do think people need to recognize that our society is aging. Families and friends and children are moving away. And there is a real need for a place to put your parents, put yourselves where they're safe. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is William Promozic. I've been living in Redstone for almost 2 years now. I moved in August of 21. I am here to support their application. I think it's a fine, I echo what Carolyn and Alice said. It's a fine run organization, highly professional, providing services for independent living, but also giving you the assurance when you can no longer live independently, there are alternatives for you there. And I have roots in Franklin Township. I was born in White Valley. I went to Franklin School District, and although I left the Murraysville area, I went to University of Pittsburgh and then law school in New York and then practiced law upstate New York and then took a job in San Francisco, was there for 48 years. But I knew a time would come when I would have to relocate back, and I think Alice put her finger on it when she said, planning ahead for what you know is going to come. And I gave it a lot of thought. I retired in 2003, and I wasn't yet ready to come back to Murraysville, although my sisters, who were still alive at that time, wanted me very much to come back. And I said, no, I'm not ready yet. And then finally in 2021, I did. My sisters are all gone. My next of kin are my nephews. And I have 4 nephews living here in the Murraysville area. And I just wanted to be near them because preparing for the growing old, process of growing old. And so I called up my nephew and I said, find a place for me out there. And he found Redstone. He said, this is a great place. And I said, fine, let's take a look at it. And I said, yeah, that sounds just like what I want. What I especially appreciate is not being alone, because I lived in apartments. I even lived in a single-family residence in San Francisco for 32 years by myself. And there's a danger that you become aware of as you get older, that you really shouldn't be living alone, that you're going to need assistance at some point, and you want to be sure that someone's there. This is what I find the big advantage of living in Redstone. I think Redstone is a great asset to the Murraysville community. I think expanding their capacity would be a benefit to the entire community, and I hope that the council will do that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So just in closing, I think you've heard some great three testimonies of why individuals end up back in your community because of connections and wanting safety and security. We again hope that we can continue the human good that has gone on here in the Murraysville community. Thank you.
Before we close the record, can I just put into evidence or into the record the mailing, which includes the restrictive covenant as applicant's exhibit 1?
Yep, absolutely. It's a minute, sir. Thank you. Okay. Now, we're going to keep the record open here for citizens' comments. This is your chance to come forward and talk about this project only. There will be a separate part of our agenda if you have any other concerns you want to talk about. The time limit is 3 minutes per person. That's 3 minutes loose. I always let people go over. That being said, if I say thank you, just recognize you're probably at 4 or 5 minutes. So with that being said, is there anyone who would want to come forward and speak about this project? And if you'd like to do so, please just state your name at the microphone before you start speaking. Anyone? Oh.
Andrew Seitz. I live at 4971 Klein Hollow Road. Initially, I came to the zoning hearing, and I spoke there against a few things that they had brought up, and there was a large contingent of the people on top of the hill that had the same agreement, and it seems like they worked out something for them. I live on the corner of that driveway that you're talking about on the bad turn. I'm the neighboring property on Klein Hollow. I've witnessed so many accidents at that intersection, it's not even funny. Not all of them involve residents of their Redstone, but people coming around that bend, people coming out getting, into accidents. You had, talked about something about, the Klein Hall being, a lot of traffic on that road. Even if you put out the second exit, it still would divide it up, but it's still putting it onto that road. And that turn is highly, highly probable. They're saying that the plan has a garage, assigned garage for every unit, so that assumes that there's a car for every unit. You're promoting that when you sell the place, obviously. He declined to answer your question about how much they cost. At the first meeting, he brought up a number and said that if they did it conventionally the way they could do it with R2, that it was unfeasible and didn't make money. They're nonprofit and they're not for money, but they talk about money a lot. And so they said he threw out a number that it would cost $600,000 if they had to sell them in Murraysville, and he said they couldn't afford to sell them at that. And I personally have my parents live in. I have nothing against Redstone. My parents live at the Redstone in North Huntington, where they have one of their bungalow houses, which after I looked it up, it was $687,000 is what they paid for that bungalow house in North Huntington. So obviously people in Murraysville have some money, they can afford what they want to pay. So it's not like they don't sell them for that. So I don't know what the numbers are on those apartments or what they're going to sell them for, but my math is that more equals more money to them, and less properties equal less value that they can sell. The traffic coming in and out of there is bad enough as it is. If you add that property, and now they've closed themselves off from other accesses on the top, they've put all their eggs in one basket on Klein Hollow. To me, that's like really a bad idea. The other reason I think that's a bad idea is because if you remember the gas well leak behind Panera, the gas blow off, they brought in ambulances from Franklin, Pennsylvania. That's above I-80. That's a 2.5-hour response time for an ambulance to evacuate people from that building. The news crews were in my yard filming the evacuation of that thing. You could look it up on the news crews if you want to see the footage of them trying to evacuate that building. You add 4 more buildings, how can they even possibly do it? I just don't think that it's safe to tax the public services like that. And I was originally against the no tax thing they're agreeing to pay the taxes because they know there's going to be some disagreement about it. But, you know, that's my 2 cents on it, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Would you want to wait till the end, or do you? Sure. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Harold Luster. I live on 4975 Klein Hollow Road. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. And I appreciate some of the questions that council has already asked of the applicant. That shows an awareness of the situation. I appreciate that. And I think it's important that the community is involved, and that's why I'm here. There's actually 3 different sections I'd like to talk about. One is the concerns of myself, Klein Hollow, and Arrowhead. Secondly, about the 10-year vision plan that was passed in 2015. And thirdly, just to recap our concerns. And all these things that I'd like to talk about, I also have here, if I could give this to the secretary or whoever I might. Okay, as a way of introduction, I'm 72 years old. With that in mind, I'm approaching the time when I'm looking for maybe a simpler way of life. I'm certainly sympathetic to the concerns of the elderly for the care and housing of the elderly. And I have no doubt that if Redstone builds, it will be done well, and it will be well thought out. I don't have a problem with that. But Redstone Presbyterian is a business, and don't look at it any other way. No matter what they bring to the community, it's a business. And that's my first concern. As a business, the business quarter in Murraysville is basically 1 block north and 1 block south of Old William Penn and 22. Beyond that, it's mostly residential. I live on Klein Hollow. You go up Klein Hollow, you've got Giant Eagle, St. Albans Church, Redstone Presbyterian, and from there on, it's all residential. And it's a growing residential if you go up that road. Same way in Arrowhead, it's a residential. Second concern is the Klein Hollow, Old William Penn intersection. Anybody that's traveled through there knows how congested it is, and it's getting worse all the time with the number of houses being built. Third, environmental impact, which I'll talk about later. Fourth, been talked about property values and tax base. There's certainly a difference between home ownership property taxes and the taxes paid by Redstone. Second is responsible development. Drainage from this area above the hill of my house, when it rains, I have 3 French drains that I put behind my house. When it rains, the water comes down this hill, shoots out of my French drain like a fire hose. All along Klein Hollow there, you can see where washouts are down to the road. What's going to happen if they have acres of asphalt and concrete up there? It's going to be worse. With that, I'd like to move on to the second portion, which is the 10-year vision plan. These comments are taken directly from your vision plan, passed in 2015. The very first paragraph says, "One constant in the municipality's ability to find balance between the abundant natural resources, residential and business aspirations, and delivering quality services." It does not mention garden apartments. The vision plan states in this order, and this is the order that they're listed: quality education, open spaces, fiscal responsibility, responsible development, business opportunity. And that's the order. Business opportunity is number 5. Quality education, 1. 2, open spaces. 3, fiscal responsibility. 4, responsible development. 5, business opportunity. Moving on, number 2. Vision plan says, Murraysville is best characterized by its large residential lot sizes and retention of its wooded hillsides and valleys, a sense of green. Emphasis here on wooded hillsides, a sense of green, and wooded valleys. Number 3, update zoning codes to encourage retention and enhancement of the community's existing landscape. Emphasis here, community's existing landscape. Up Klein Hollow Road, it turns into residential. Arrowhead, residential. Number 4, encourage continued housing and neighborhood development. Neighborhood development, Klein Hollow, Arrowhead, neighborhoods. Encourage home ownership. Number 6, a housing strategy that reflects existing residential development. Residential development, Klein Hollow, is residential, Arrowhead residential. Number 7, promote Murraysville as a dynamic community that protects resources, enhances and balances environmental, economic, social, and aesthetic values. Emphasis on environment. If I could talk about the environment quickly. I can sit on my patio right now and I can't count them. There's untold number of bats that fly around. I have a security camera, which I'd rather call a wildlife camera, because it's not there for security, but we see deer, we see pheasants, turkeys, we see possums, raccoons, I see owls as they're out hunting their food, little rodents and small game. At nighttime, I can see the Big Dipper, I can see the Little Dipper, I can see the space shuttle going over, I can see all the constellations. With light pollution, that'll no longer be the case, not just for me where I sit in my patio, but for the whole neighborhood.
Sir, you're at over 5 minutes, but what I think we can do is you gave a copy of your document to our planning coordinator. We're going to admit that into evidence, make a copy of that, give it to the court reporter. So everything in that document we'll make sure is in evidence, and everyone on council will read it.
Okay, can I wrap up quickly in a minute?
Very quickly, sure.
Okay. Some of the more important aspects, and many of these aspects on the vision plan were all the same because they all talked with community, wooded areas, open spaces, and that's what I'd like to stress. The last 2 elements that I'd like to say is, all from the vision plan. Number 1, there's no single way of doing things. You have to keep thinking and keep doing things. Number 2, probably the most important statement from the vision plan, Murraysville is best characterized by its large residential lots and retentions of its wooded hillsides and valleys, a sense of green. And let's keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. And don't worry, everyone, we're going to get to everybody here. So.
My name is Stephanie Wedge, and I live at 5055 Sequoia Court. I'm just here to put a face to all of the things that Mr. Dixon and the gentleman from Redstone talked about. We did attend all of the planning commissions. We've had our voice heard, and thank you for hearing us. I think this booklet is wonderful. I want to tell you a little bit about our community. We're about 58 homes. They're about 60-some years old. The houses are built back in by Mystic Hills. There's 30 kids in our neighborhood. 2 of them are special needs. We walk the streets, we play in the streets, the dogs, the children. There's a bus that comes. When my kids were young, we didn't have enough kids in there for buses. Now there's buses that come. It is a residential community, and all along our main concern, to your question of earlier, was access, opening up our 4 dead-end streets to allow traffic. I thank you for addressing that in the covenant, and that reduces the concern now to more of what the gentleman, the Klein Hollow, did very well proposed, which is the natural resources. We didn't move into Monroeville. We didn't move into Plumboro. We loved the nature and the feeling of Murraysville. We respect and appreciate the goodwill that Redstone continues to offer to the community, and I am getting older, so I'll need someplace to live at some point. But I wanted to give you the face of the Mystic Hills, which is you keep hearing references to. That's who we are. We are the people that did not want access. It sounds like we have a covenant protection, so now it's your job to balance all of the things you're hearing and deciding what's the best for Murraysville moving forward. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, my name's Al Bonomo. I live on Sequoia Court. Bonomo, B-O-N-O-M-O. My main concern is before you could change from R2 to R3, you were talking about the fire department, the emergency services, okay? Does that all have to be worked out before you would make your decision?
I can address that. That would probably be worked out when they were building. That being said, it sounds to me like council has a very real concern about that, and I think we might hear from the applicant later, so we'll see.
Because the only reason is if council decides to open it and Redstone decides to open it, there's nothing we can do about it. And at that point, their covenants mean nothing. And that's what I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Marty Kuzumkowski. I live at 3913 Princess Court in Murraysville. No, I don't want, no. Kuzumkowski, K-U-Z as in zebra, M as in Michael, K-O-W-S-K-I. 3913 Princess Court. Certainly. I would like to kind of ask a couple questions, I guess anecdotally, towards Gateway Engineering. I'd like to understand a little bit more about the design of the management of the stormwater of the property, the way it looked like on their plan. They had a couple of stormwater ponds that may be up gradient of the residents on Klein Hollow Road, specifically the hydrologic soil units of this particular piece of property are a type C soil, which means they're not going to infiltrate very well. Further, depth to bedrock in this area is somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 feet. So there's going to be significant cuts and fills on this facility. And the reason that the gentleman is finding that his French drains at his home are running at capacity during heavy rainfall events is because the water is infiltrating into the ground, hitting the bedrock, and then making its way out of his French drain systems. So I'd like to understand a little bit better from a slope stability standpoint how Gateway plans to deal with the ponds and the stormwater runoff in the area.
Thank you, sir. So before we get to any closing comments from the applicant, are there any further comments from the public, from anyone? Okay, seeing none, would the applicant like to say anything before we close the record?
Address the site drainage issue, but I'd like to talk about what Mr. Seitz presented about an entrance fee that his father pays over, his family pays over at North Huntington. That was an elected amount. Redstone has a program by which you can get 95% of your refundability back. So under this situation, the Seitz family would receive $570,000 back.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Jonathan Garcheski with Gateway Engineers. In regards to the comments associated with the stormwater runoff, slope stability analysis, geotechnical investigation, again, we're here tonight truly for the rezoning process to ensure that the project is even feasible from a zoning standpoint at the municipal level. With that being said, further due diligence, civil engineering analysis, geotechnical analysis, as well as infiltration testing throughout the property would be completed at that point in time in the event that the project was a viable project with the municipality, all being designed well within the requirements of both the municipal ordinances as well as the DEP requirements as well.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Okay, so we won't be making a decision on this matter tonight. We're simply going to close the record. It'll be on a future council agenda as a workshop item, so council can digest this, think about it. And again, just so everyone is aware, this is a rezoning request, so a lot of the engineering that would go into an actionable development hasn't been done yet because you don't do that till after you know you can build it. So that does make sense. With that being said, is there anything closing from council before the record's closed? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to close the record?
Motion to close the record. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, the record is closed. Thank you, everyone.
Dane.
Yeah.
Step out for just 5 minutes.
Okay, no problem. Do you mind if we keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're done. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for your time. We'll let everybody clear out, then we'll get rolling.
Let us break for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Slow it down. Ball back, is that? I think so. Just remember. Yeah.
Hey, Chuck, take care. Good to see you. Take care.
I mean, we can. Well, we can talk about it and simply say, I think it needs to be on the workshop as a discussion item.
Yeah, that's good.
It's always a discussion. Okay, everyone. Looks like the ruckus is down, so we are going to get to our regularly scheduled voting agenda. I'll call the regular meeting to order. Can I please have a roll call?
Mr. Stepanovich,
You'll be right back. He went to the men's room.
Mrs. Ling,
Here.
Mr. McKenna,
Here.
Mr. Spadero,
Here.
Mr. Lemak,
Here.
Dr. Lee Corns, Mr. Dice,
Here.
Mayor Sinan.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mr. Nestico, do we have any unlisted amendments this evening?
None this evening.
Thank you. That brings us to our consent calendar items. Do we have any questions or concerns about the consent calendar items? Hearing none, can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve the consent calendar items.
Second.
Thank you, Tony and Jason. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to comments by the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Dice. We have a few slides here this evening. First of all, there's an ARP Foundation tax aid preparation at the Murraysville Community Center. Appointments are required. No walk-in services will be available. You need to call 412-394-8959. Again, I would say the number to call for reservation is 412-394-8959. Next up, we have the Murraysville Recreation's Hot Chocolate Hikes. The next one is Saturday, March 25th at Townsend Park at 10 a.m. There's more information, as always, at MurraysvillePARecreation.com or call here at the municipal number, extension 131. The yoga with Carol Hunsig, certified yoga instructor, 2 sessions, Monday, February 6th to the 20th, Mondays, February 6th to the 27th, $13 per class. It's drop-in only, no pre-registration required. Murraysville Community Center, 6 to 7 p.m. Lastly, the Egg in My Yard, which is very popular with the children. Registration closes March 24th. We want to egg your yard for your own very private egg hunt. Egging will take place on Monday, April 3rd, with Tuesday, April 4th as a rain date. Again, as usual, if you need any other information or fees to register, MurraysvillePARecreation.com. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
That brings us to comments by the Chief Administrator. Mr. Nestico?
Sure. Just one comment for this evening. We've gotten some feedback to council members as well as to the municipal offices regarding the train derailment event that took place. We just wanted to make the community aware that we are keeping an eye on things regarding that event. We're aware of the lawsuit that was reported in the newspaper today. We don't anticipate, based on what we've read and gathered thus far, any long-term local or regional health consequences, but we are aware that the DEP and the EPA are doing testing and monitoring at that site. So we just wanted to make the community aware that we are trying to keep a pulse on that event and make sure that if there are any consequences that would trickle out into our community, we're going to try to stay on top of that and be aware of it. So.
Wonderful.
That is all for this month.
No, thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to community input. Thank you.
Jeanette Pavlik,
and my address is on the form. I live in Murraysville. I was on the, in Duff Park on the Funk Bike Trail, bike path, whatever it is. And I wanted to just let you know that there is some erosion on the trail. It's getting very narrow in spots. If there's no funds to fix that, that's a problem because there's a lot of residents that use that trail. I think that that is a priority over the amphitheater. So if that's, needs to be diverted to that or any other issues with other parks, we need to do those things first and not spend $2 million on the amphitheater as a start, because we know that there's going to be more expenses regarding the amphitheater than just that amount. So, thank you.
No, thank you for your comment. And Mr. Nestico, can we just make a note to have Public Works take a look out there and remedy any issues that might be safety or just problems on the trail?
Yeah, I can get in touch with Ms. Pavlik to find out what location she may be referring to as well, and we'll try to take a look at that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for your follow-up. Okay, seeing no other citizens' comments, that brings us to liaison comments and committee reports. Let's start with Jason.
The library meets tomorrow, but they wanted me to mention on Monday, excuse me, there's a building challenge with Legos between 4:30 and 5. And just to mention on Wednesdays is toddler time between 10 and 10:30.
Thank you.
I'll meet with them again tomorrow.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
There was a, pardon me, lengthy meeting of the Planning Commission yesterday. 2 public hearings. The first one had to do with the Wetco car wash, and I'm sure we're all familiar with where that is planning to be. There was a quick summary of it given by Mr. Lee May, the site development manager. A couple key points. One, there will be no access to the car wash from Old William Penn Highway. And secondly, that the signs will have to have separate approval. The only community input concern was vehicle pollution from cars using the car wash. The second public hearing had to do with 2 synthetic soccer fields that would be built on School Road South. The area of the land is 60 plus acres. This is, of course, outdoor, no bleachers. There was a lighting consultant that at length described LED lighting, which is very focused as opposed to flood lighting, and also the need for rather high 80-foot poles so they can get the angle to make sure that they're focusing just on the field itself. It was interesting that they will be used by club soccer teams. Murraysville has no club soccer team. The closest club soccer is based in Monroeville, and the age of the players are anywhere from, say, 13 to 18 years of age. The activity would be basically in the spring and the fall. There were 12 community inputs provided. I'll summarize it by saying there was concern of sound, meaning the current ordinance allows the use of the fields up till 10 p.m., lighting, whether there would be bleeding of the lighting and disturbing the current rural atmosphere, traffic on School Road South, and that's been kind of recognized that School Road South is a problem highway, or not highway, but street. Also that the possibility that this is being built on reclaimed strip mining land, and perhaps through the consolidation in the parking area of 200 cars, there could be some effect, or deleterious effect as a result of that. Also, with the large number of people using it, there could be road trash, which would be a problem. And it is, what the general comment was, it looks like we're putting in a commercial, or their request is to have a commercial concern in a RR zoning. The meeting proper itself, there was a gentleman from Plum Borough who had been invited here by our community development manager. excellent information with respect to injection wells, what to do right, that perhaps they didn't do right at Plumboro. A couple things they indicated that, one, the cooperation, not cooperation, but communications between the DEP and the EPA and Plumboro was very, very poor. And a couple things they said also, the location is key where you would locate such a facility. The new business, one was the WETCO facility. It's going to be passed on to council, and there will be a requirement. They meet the sign criteria, noise. There will be a maintenance agreement between actually the gas station and the car wash, because even though they're both Giant Eagle, it's usually the case they'll be owned by different financial entities. And there also will be landscaping requirement that will have to be met. Okay, in the soccer fields, it was concluded that basically the project has been held over to a future meeting. And in the meantime, they are to provide some metrics with respect to site distance, elevations, and so forth, which they agreed to. And finally, there was is a 19-acre site that is requesting R1 to R2, and the request to advertise this, which was granted. And that was it.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Medic 1 meets tomorrow night.
Awesome. Jamie?
A school board meeting met this past Monday on the 13th. It was a board and committee of the whole. The next meeting is March 20th. They did mention that there would be some bridge work on Sardis, which is not the municipality work. It's through the school, but that could be a concern on Sardis right across from the municipal building.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, thank you. Matt?
My microphone went out. The Parks and Recreation Committee met last night. The mayor already talked about the Easter egg thing that's going on. Other than that, there was just a lot of discussion around Kovalchik Park, and we're redoing the playground up there, and they're also going to resurface and new fencing area and trim around it on the courts and stuff. So that's good. That should be up and coming, and the weather's helping out to get some work done up there. So we're working on that. That was mainly it.
All right, awesome, thank you. I just know too that FTMSA meets tomorrow. Okay, so getting to our workshop items, the first item would be a discussion of the Redstone rezoning. Obviously, we just talked about that. The applicant is here. Any other questions or concerns from council right now? Okay, hearing none, I just want to note, let's make sure that this is a workshop item on the next agenda, give council some time to digest, think about this, come up with other questions, and then we'll take it from there. That brings us to the next item, which is a discussion for the Connors property located at Ashbaugh and Monmouth Road. Obviously, for anyone wondering, this was already on an agenda. We voted it down. That being said, the applicant came forward, explained that they feel they maybe didn't represent that the option they're proposing very well might be the best option for the property, because if they don't get the driveway exemption, they're going to have to disturb trees and earth over a large portion of the property that could actually lead to even more damage, poor soils, stormwater runoff for neighboring properties. So I thought it was important that the applicant be able to come back and kind of explain that logic. That's why they're on the agenda again. So with that being said, would the applicant want to come forward and just kind of explain what's going on?
Good evening, Council. My name is Jamie Harshman. I saw you last time, and also with me tonight is John Connors. This is John's property and his driveway, so he's here to help answer any questions that you might have. Chairman, you said it very well. I feel like, perhaps I didn't convey well enough to Council the significance of the plan that we have in front of you with respect to just the differences in overall disturbances. I had shared before that, we were strongly encouraged by both Conservation District and DEP to come up with this particular design as opposed to the previous scenarios that we went through. We provided supporting letters and emails from the department and from the Conservation District to the point of getting this design approved. Hopefully you have those in your files. I also went through and put together some specific numbers for the municipality to consider, comparative acreages of disturbance, cubic yardages of disturbance, and respective stormwater erosion geotechnical impacts between the two plans. This driveway as proposed in a nutshell is about a third of the impact compared to the alternate, which would be the 15% driveway coming kind of snaking across the property. So I'm hopeful that that's enough information for council to consider approval of our request tonight. And I assume everyone's had the chance to read that and see that information. I don't need to repeat it. If there's any specific questions that you have, or John, anything you'd like to say to council, we're here to try to help this move forward. Thank you for your time again tonight.
I'd like to say I appreciate what you had sent over. It was very detailed, explained a lot of that. So I know that there was questions before and whatnot, but I did appreciate all the work that you did and what you sent over to us.
Thank you, sir.
I have a couple of questions, sorry. So it's 38.5 acres, this lot.
Correct. Yes.
Plans in the future to parcel it out
None whatsoever.
at any point in time?
Plans are just to build a single house on it. And yes, and actually, it's very difficult to do anything else with it. We started there. We thought maybe we could put, it's RR zoning. We thought maybe we could put 10 or 15 lots up there, but the cost to get the road to the top of the hill was prohibitive. It just doesn't make economic sense to do anything other than what we're doing with it, which is to build a single house on it.
To add to that question while she's thinking,
So can I continue on my line of my question?
I just want to ask one.
Go ahead, Tony.
Go ahead, finish.
All right, thanks. So I understand that right now you have no plans, but I understand the future can change a lot of stuff. So one of my concerns is that the road right now that's designated for the exemption, the waiver, as a single-family dwelling exemption, could possibly down the road be used as a precedent for other houses that are built on this lot.
Ones are back.
So I would like to propose a conditional approval based on that this roadway would stay a single-family dwelling roadway, just specifically for this one house.
I think that's a great idea. Since this is a conditional use application, you've got the opportunity to attach conditions which become legally binding, and we're absolutely fine with that requirement.
Okay. The question I had was, I know you say you're not going to build anymore up there, but do you have a for sale sign on the one on your property right now?
No, that's actually a separate parcel.
That's what?
That's a separate parcel.
That's not your parcel?
It is, but it's it's the corner lot. Is that the one you're referring to? The corner lot to Maymont and Ashbaugh. The parcel in question that we're applying for.
That lot doesn't.
Right. The 38 acres is the main parcel. There's a separate parcel on the corner of Maymont and Ashbaugh that's 1.6 acres.
Does that connect to the other ground?
Does it connect? I'm sorry, does it connect to what?
Or is that separate?
It's separate. It's adjacent, but it's separate. It's a separate recorded parcel. It's just that small corner lot. That's what we have for sale.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think in reading some of the plans that you had, the one thing I always wanted to take into consideration is the neighbors that had come, the gentleman that came across the street and spoke. And, my first thought was that he said a lot of water comes down and whatnot, and, it's impactful to people. But it seems like with the plans that you proposed, the one that you're asking for the exemption on would actually be a lot more beneficial to those people across that street or, that are below there, because from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong,
the water retention that you do, you have to put your own system. You're not going into their current, what is running that stormwater off for them. You will be tapping your own from what you're doing up there, which should improve that runoff to those neighbors. It seems like, other than the alternative, which would be disturbing a lot of land and a lot more runoff.
Both those points are absolutely accurate. The plan proposed right now is going to have inlets in the driveway. It's going to be routed through a detention system. It will actually reduce the volume and slow the water down versus what it is right now. Right now, that hillside just runs down to the road. It gets kind of caught in the roadside swale, which isn't much of anything. They've had problems in the past with the Gaswell Road. They ended up putting a berm of gravel across the Gaswell Road to try to divert some of that. Well, we're going to capture all of that into inlets and piping and a detention system, again, to both reduce the volume and slow down the discharge rates. So I agree with that 100%.
So I have another, sorry, full of questions tonight. So I understand your plan in managing the stormwater in the end, but how are you planning on, being that there's already an issue during the cut, I guess, cut process? How are you going to manage that so it doesn't become worse?
Sure, that's a great question. So during the earthwork phases, the Pennsylvania has what they call Chapter 102 requirements, which are for erosion and sediment control during the earth moving phases. And there's a whole package of drawings that are have been prepared to DEP standards on that. So specific things that happen, the earthwork has to be staged in sequences as grades are established. Topsoil, seed, mulch, blankets have to be placed immediately. Thereafter, you're not allowed to leave disturbed earth for more than, I think it's 48 hours or something like that. A very short period of time that ground's allowed to sit dormant without it being treated with seed, mulch, blanket, that sort of thing. There will be several layers and many rows of what's called filter sock or silt sock. It's these big, large mulch socks that they lay in everywhere. There will be a rock construction entrance put in at the beginning of construction. This is in a high quality watershed, which means that DEP makes us use the best available control technology for all of these things. If we were in another watershed, we might be able to do silt fences like you've seen in other places. There's a smaller rock construction entrance, but because of the sensitive nature of this watershed, we have to use the best things that are available, and those are all part of the permit that will be issued by the department, the NPDES permit. They'll have inspectors available. They'll do regular inspections, issue reports on that. The contractor will be required to do daily inspections of all of the control methods that are on the property, keep a log of that information. So it's actually a pretty thorough process when you're involved with an NPDES permit to control the runoff during the construction phase. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I missed the last meeting, so I apologize for that, but I did review the material, and I just made a little checklist here. So the emergency vehicle situation, we got the checklist, or we got the approval from them. They were okay with the entrance of emergency vehicles onto the property?
Yes, that's correct. In particular, we widened the flare at the driveway to accommodate a left turn of the tanker truck into the driveway. We've made the commitment to providing an adequate turnaround at the house when the house site is laid out. The chief was good with that. I also provided him both the turning template on the plan view and the vertical profile to show that the clearances of the front and the end of the truck could navigate the vertical curve at the entrance of the driveway. Okay. Right now, the driveway just goes straight up, but when we grade this in, it's going to have a curve before it gets to that 16.9%.
Okay, and I think another point to make is it's not 16.9% the entire way. There's just portions of it that reach that maximum.
That's exactly right. That's the maximum, and then it levels off nice at the top.
Okay, and drainage, it sounds like with the NPDES, you'd actually improve the situation as compared to what is there now.
Yes, that's correct.
Subdivided, you answered that question, and I think that's it. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Okay, further questions or concerns from council? Okay, that was the workshop portion. This is a voting item later, so we'll vote on this tonight. I believe it may be a little split vote, so we'll do a roll call. But if there's no questions or concerns, thank you for your time, gentlemen. Okay, that brings us to our council action items. We'll begin with administration. Can I please have a motion for 13A?
Make a motion to approve ordinance number 1067-23, specifying the rate of pension contributions with respect to the police pension plan for the 2023 calendar year.
Second.
Thank you, Jamie and Jason. Mike, I know it's clerical, anything to...
Sorry, just checking to make sure my mic's on. Planning meeting last night drained all the batteries, if you're wondering why we're having all the mic issues. No, this is just a annual item that we do, a routine item for the police pension contributions, and not much else to add to this item.
Okay. Questions or concerns from council? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. That brings us to 13B. Can I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to authorize approval of ordinance number 1068-23, an ordinance authorizing the lease of the Sears House, the Townsend House, and the Bailey House.
Second.
Let's go Jason and Carl. Now, I know there were some questions about this and the numbers within at the last meeting. Have those been rectified?
Yes. So I inadvertently inserted I think the prior year's numbers for what would have been 2021 and 2022. So we rectified that. It's in the briefing, but it's anywhere between a 4 to, I think, 7% increase, keeping whole dollar amounts intact as much as possible. So each of the leases go up roughly $50 to $75 per lease for the new term.
Okay. Questions or concerns from council? Nope. Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. It's unanimous. Thank you. That brings us to 13C. Can I please have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to authorize approval of ordinance number 1069-23, an ordinance authorizing a license agreements for the use of a radio tower and accessory building equipment located on or about the property of 3867 Windover Road for the operation of a municipal radio communications network.
Second.
Thank you, Tony and Mac. Questions or concerns from council? We talked about this last meeting.
Nope.
Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to 13D. Motion, please.
Consider authorizing staff to execute an electric supply agreement with Interstate Gas Supply, LLC, at a rate of $0.0638 per kilowatt hour for a 16-month term beginning April 2023 through July 2024.
Second.
Thank you, Carl and Jason. Mike?
Yes, this is just the electric supply agreement for the municipal electric services through the various buildings. Staff looked into other alternatives. This wound up being the lowest rate available. The West Penn Power currently charges slightly more. We found one other supplier, Keytex Energy, that used to provide the electric service distribution agreement for the municipality. Both were higher than the rate that you see here in this agreement. So I would ask council to consider approving this item.
Okay. Questions or concerns from council?
Not on this in particular, other than I did call Interstate Gas, and I asked what their residential rates were, and they were higher than West Penn. So that's a good deal to hear for the municipality.
Awesome.
So this locks us into a 16-month agreement. What if the rates go down?
So they did provide a buffer that if the rates go down, they would allow us to open up and renegotiate the agreement. So there is a provision in there that allows for that.
Awesome. Further questions or concerns? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. It passes unanimously. That brings us to community development. And I would just note for anyone who makes this motion, please include that it is inclusive of the new condition that we are only approving a driveway for a single-family home. Anything further would be a different conditional use that the applicant would have to figure out.
I'll take that. I'll authorize, make a motion to authorize approval of CU-6-22, an application for excavation into steep slopes and poor soils, Connors Residence, corner of Ashbaugh and Maymont Road, tax parcel 49-07-00-0-015, 38.5 acres, RR zoning, and the waiver of Chapter 97F for driveways for the municipality code. This would also include a condition that we would only be approving for this steep slope for a single-family home for that.
I think it's prudent also to say no greater than 16.9% slope.
Okay.
There's no limit on that.
Is the applicant all right with that? Applicant has said they are all right with also the condition being...
As well as a condition to be no more than 16.9 slope.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. Okay, so Mr. McKenna's made the motion. Can we have a second? Second from Ms. Ling. Any further questions or concerns before we go to a vote?
I'll comment on it. Originally I was not for it. I commend the applicant and the engineering for it. Every stumbling block that's come along or issue with it, I think they've been very good at addressing that, especially with these conditions. So that's just my 2 cents. I feel like all of the reservations that I've had, everyone's been checked off slowly but surely. So it kind of came in front of us and then didn't and then came back. So yeah, I appreciate what
I would concur. I was originally a no as well, but after further understanding it and seeing that the Conservation District actually recommended this plan because it will be better for stormwater and the other conditions of the property, it just swayed me to say, if this is going to be developed, this is the way to do it.
I have a question for Wes. So with this conditional approval, could that possibly set a precedent if for some reason in the future they decided to parcel it out?
In answer to your question, Ms. Ling, I don't think you can prohibit future subdivision of the property. You can prohibit this road to be utilized only for one home.
If they were to parcel it out in such a way that they would have a different access point than this way, would this set a precedent for another waiver on a steep slope?
I don't believe so. I think that would be, since it's 38 acres in one home, I understand council's comments. If it's further subdivided and there are multiple homes, I think that's a totally different issue than
They would each go on their own merits.
And I'll just say that I concur with Wes that, getting into the term precedent, that's a legally significant term. This does not set a precedent. If the applicant wants to come and subdivide, they always have the right to subdivide. But if they want to start building, then they'll have to come in for conditional uses, much like they did here, at which point this council or future councils will have to decide if they feel like making any waivers. And then it'll be on the applicant to do what they did here and demonstrate why those waivers are necessary.
And that would be based on each individual property.
Exactly. So
separately.
The ultimate concern is, no, this individual cannot come forward and say, you gave me a waiver here, therefore on this subdivision for these 10 lots, you have to do the same. Absolutely not.
And I think it's important too to consider, when reading all this it seems like the building of the home is going to happen. It's just whether you're disturbing a whole hillside or doing this waiver, and it seems like we've seen what's been sent over.
Right, but any further development in the future is a totally different set of circumstances.
Right. Yep.
All right. Further questions or concerns? Okay.
Staff supports council considering approval of this, basically for 2 reasons. One is that it has the support of both the Conservation District and the DEP from an environmental point of view. The second is, in very rare instances, does the code provide for council to grant waivers of any section of the code. In fact, the only one that comes to mind is the landscaping provision in the, or I'm sorry, the architectural standards in the zoning ordinance. And these are, it's meant to be that way for extraordinary circumstances where the harm of enforcing the provision as it's outlined is greater than what the granting of the waiver would be.
Thank you. No, I wholly agree.
That's a great point.
So, any further questions?
There's a question.
Yeah.
The planning commission passed this to us with an approval?
Yes. Okay, I understand that there's going to be some yays and nays on this, so for Dale, could you please do a roll call vote?
Mr. Stepanovich,
Yay.
Mrs. Ling,
Yay.
Mr. McKenna,
Yes.
Mr. Spadaro,
No.
Mr. Lemak,
Yes.
Mr. Dice.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to 14B. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve ordinance number 1071-23, authorizing a lot line revision for tax parcel number 4911140079, increasing the lot size by .017 acres and reducing the common open space identified as Westmoreland County tax parcel number 4911140999 by the same amount of acreage.
Second motion.
Thank you, Jamie and Jason. We talked about this last meeting, obviously about as de minimis as it gets. Any questions or concerns? No. Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. It is unanimous. Nothing further. Is there any old business from anyone? Any new business?
One thing, Dane, you're involved with the FTMSA.
Yes, sir.
Is there a schedule for the completion of the remedies they're doing in Rustic Ridge that you're aware of?
Not off the top of my head, but I can certainly get that answer for you if you've had some people reach out.
I did, yeah. If there's a project schedule available, I'd appreciate that.
I'll be there tomorrow, so I'll make a note to bring that up and just email it to you.
Thank you very much. That's all.
All right, thank you.
I did one, I have one other thing too. Just to bring to the attention of council, and I talked to Mike about it. Last week, there was the incident with the gas in Murraysville, it was on the export side of Murraysville. I just didn't know if we, as a community, got calls to the municipality about issues with that. I personally, my own house blew out the regulators and ranges, everything, and they were told, there was a lot of pressure in those lines and whatnot for that. It's a concern a little bit, so I didn't know if we've contacted Peoples, if we understand why that happened. All the repair people that came to my house and fixed it, they said it was absolutely, that there was high pressure in the lines, and that's why they had multiple calls of all over Murraysville, furnaces and stoves and ranges. So I didn't know if we got any calls.
There were well over 50 calls to the fire department, maybe approaching 70. And the problem was that the additive that goes in the gas was put in at too strong of a level.
Right.
And normally your water heater will burn it up, and up the stack it goes. Well, it wasn't enough, so it was leaving like a residue smell in the basements. Every house they tested had no explosive limits whatsoever.
Right.
It was just the odor. So eventually, they pressurized the lines and opened 2 wells up to blow the pressure off the lines, and this was to eliminate the high level of mercaptan in the line. So that was the gist of
The
it.
pressuring of that line blew a lot of people's stuff in their houses
supposedly
out.
that was, they had a release for that. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know about.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if we had,
don't know
just
what
for the
caused the
community. Okay. I mean, if it's a one-off,
I
that's
saw all
fine.
that on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just concerning to me because I knew what they were going through because I went through it. So, thank you.
I would certainly add that if anybody thinks they've had a problem or pressure's caused them any problem, call the gas company.
Right.
Get them out there.
Yeah.
Oh, very good point. Okay. Any other old or new business? Okay, hearing none, I would note that we're going to have an executive session tonight to talk about a real estate matter and also a public safety matter. So with that, and there will be no action coming out of that executive session. So with that being said, can I please have one more motion to adjourn to executive session?
Motion to adjourn to executive session.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.